Shalom. My name is MOREH ISHIYAH Yisrael from the House of Israel in Cincinnati, Ohio, 2330 Kemper Lane, bringing to you in 40 minutes or less. In 40 minutes or less, I will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the word of Yahweh. Who is this Yahweh? Yahweh is the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein. Yahweh is the Elohim of our fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, whom you may know as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh is our judge. Yahweh is our lawgiver. Yahweh is our king, who will save us. Shalom. In our lesson number 12, we will deal with the law where Yahweh chose to place his name. As stated before, Yahweh will have laws to govern the nation of Israel, but not just the nation of Israel, laws that govern the world. And we will deal with the various laws of Yahweh. But today's lesson, we will deal with the law where Yahweh chose to place his name. The first place that I would like you to consider is in the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. And this is what Yahweh said concerning the place where he chose to place his name. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter, I will start reading at the 5th verse. This is what it says. But unto the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and there thou shalt come. And there ye shall bring your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, heave offerings of your hand, your vows, your free will offerings, and the firstlings of your herds, and of your flocks. And there ye shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim, and ye shall rejoice in all that you put your hand unto, ye your households, wherein Yahweh thy Elohim have blessed thee. So that's number one. And Yahweh made it crystal clear. These are the things that we're to bring to him in his habitation. And let me also read to you the 11th verse. Watch what it says. Then there shall be a place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. There you shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, heave offerings on your hand, your choice vow, which ye vow unto Yahweh. And watch the 14th verse in this same chapter. And we'll start at the 13th verse. Take heed to thyself that thou offer not thy burnt offering in every place that thou seest, but in the place which Yahweh shall choose in one of your tribes, there thou shalt offer your burnt offerings. There thou shalt do all that I command thee. And also in the 18th verse. Watch what it says. And we'll start at the 17th verse. Thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of the corn, of thy wine, or thy oil, the firstlings of your herds, or of thy flock, nor any of thy fowls which thou vow, nor thy free will offerings, or heave offering of thy hand. But thou must eat them before Yahweh thy Elohim in a place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. Thou and thy son, thy daughter, thy manservant, thy maidservant, the Levites that is within thy gates, and thou shalt rejoice before Yahweh thy Elohim in all that thou puttest thy hands unto. So Yahweh is very crystal clear on what we're to bring and what we're to eat in the place where he chose to place his name. Furthermore, Yahweh also let us know this in the book of Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter, and let us turn there. And this is what it says, starting at the 22nd verse. Thou shalt truly tithe all thy increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year. And thou shalt eat before Yahweh thy Elohim in a place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, of thy oil, the firstlings of thy herds, and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yahweh thy Elohim always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose to set his name there, when Yahweh thy Elohim have blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money, bind up the money in thy hand, and shall go into place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusted after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desire. And thou shalt eat there before Yahweh thy Elohim, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thy household. And you notice when we're dealing with this tithes, this is called our yearly tithes, that we're supposed to tithe every year. But as we read before, in the law concerning the gates, your dwellings and habitations, we also supposed to have tithes in our gates, not just in Jerusalem, but also in our gates. Now I'll just read that one more time, since we're in the book of Deuteronomy 14, which lets you know these are two different tithes altogether. Starting at the 27th verse, and watch what it says. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he has no part nor inheritance with thee. And at the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring all the tithe of thy increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates, not in Jerusalem, but in the place where you live. And the Levites, because he has no part nor inheritance with thee, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh thy Elohim may bless thee in all the work of thy hand, which thou doest. Of course, this is the second law concerning the place where Yahweh chose to place his name. Let us read the third law, which is in the book of Deuteronomy, the 15th chapter. In Deuteronomy, the 15th chapter, this is what it says, and we're going to start reading at the 19th verse. Deuteronomy 15 and 19. All the firstling males that come of thy herd and of thy flock that thou sanctify unto Yahweh thy Elohim, thou shalt do no work with the firstlings of thy bullock, nor shear the firstling of thy sheep. Thou shalt eat it before Yahweh thy Elohim year by year, in the place which Yahweh shall choose, thou and thy household. And if there be any blemish therein, as if it be lame or blind, or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto Yahweh. Thou shalt eat it within thy gates. The unclean and unclean person shall eat it alike as the roebuck and as the hart. In other words, anything that has blemish, we can eat it, but we can't take that to Yahweh. And we can eat that within our gates. Only thou shalt not eat the blood thereof. Thou shalt pour it upon the ground as water. That's number two. That was number three. Now on number four. Number four. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Again, this is the law where Yahweh chose to place his name. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, the 2nd verse, this is what it says. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh thy Elohim of the flock and the herd in the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there. That's why we don't keep the Passover, because that's where he chose to place his name in Jerusalem. So we don't keep the Passover everywhere we are. And not just the Passover, in sacrificing it, watch what it says, starting at the 5th verse, concerning the Passover. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates, which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee, but at the place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose to place his name in, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even, at the going of the sun, at the season thou camest forth out of Egypt. And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose. And thou shalt turn in the morning and go into thy tents. Again, letting us know the Passover. We're to eat it, we're to roast it, we're to sacrifice it in the place where he shall choose. Number 5, also in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, because now we're talking about the law where Yahweh chose to place his name. And it lets us know in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, at the 9th verse, 7 weeks shalt thou number to thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou begin to put the sickle to the corn. And thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto Yahweh thy Elohim with a tribute of a freewill offering of thy hand, which thou shalt give unto Yahweh thy Elohim, according as Yahweh thy Elohim hath blessed thee. And thou shalt rejoice before Yahweh thy Elohim, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite that is within thy gates, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow that are among you, in the place which Yahweh thy Elohim had chosen to place his name there. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and thou shalt observe and do these statutes, and not just the Feast of Weeks. The 6th place that Yahweh, or the 6th law that Yahweh gave us, where Yahweh chose to place his name, in Deuteronomy 16, verse 13, this is what it says. Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days, after thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine, and thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter, thy manservant, thy maidservant, the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days thou shalt keep a solemn feast unto Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which Yahweh shall choose, because Yahweh thy Elohim shall bless thee in all thy increase and in all the works of thy hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. That's the Feast of Tabernacles. This is why we do not keep the Feast of Weeks or the Feast of Tabernacles everywhere we live. That is done in a place where Yahweh chose to place his name. And the last law, which is in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, the 16th verse. And this is what it says. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which he shall choose, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, in the Feast of Weeks, and in the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before Yahweh empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yahweh thy Elohim, which he hath given thee. And when it comes to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the only part of the Feast of Unleavened Bread that Yahweh told us that we had to do in our gates, in our dwellings, in our habitations, is the eating of unleavened bread for 7 days and the removing of leaven out of our houses for 7 days. This is the law. But everything else concerning the Feast of Unleavened Bread must be done in a place where Yahweh chose to place his name. And until our next lesson, Yahweh love you, and so do I. Shalom.